Alright, look, just buy this game. Yeah, just go out and buy it if you have a PS5. That's basically the gist of this video. And we're done. Oh, wait! So seldom do we have games in a fantastic open world setting with all the bells and whistles like this game has. If you haven't already played it on PS4, then this is an essential buy. The amount of content in it is more than worth the price of admission, but if you have already played Ghost of Tsushima on the PS4, it all comes down to how much you enjoyed it. If you bought the game digitally or have the physical PS4 game disc, all you must do to get the complete Director's Cut update on the PS5 is pay an additional $30. With the Director's Cut, you are able to access Iki Island for all new story chapters and extra content, along with a slew of PS5 goodies. Such additions are increased performance with a dynamic 4K resolution at a targeted 60 frames per second, faster loading times, 3D audio, DualSense haptics and adaptive triggers, and lip syncing for Japanese voiceovers. In this video, I will briefly be discussing the main campaign on Tsushima for first-time players, and I will also be discussing what to expect in the Iki Island expansion. Ghost of Tsushima is an open-world action-adventure game set on the island of Tsushima during the Mongol invasion in the year 1274. The player assumes the role of the young samurai lord Jin Sakai when he nearly loses his life on the beach during the Mongol invasion. Jin, along with his uncle, Lord Shimura, band together as samurai and seek to reclaim the island of Tsushima by ridding the presence of the Mongol invasion, led by Khotan Khan. Jin Sakai makes many new allies along the way who provide him with valuable assistance in driving out the Mongols and securing the island of Tsushima. The game's story is presented wonderfully with authentic voice performances from a diverse cast of characters. You can really hear the desperation and sadness in the characters as they try to adjust to a life that has truly turned their world upside down.
When we take their life, we look them in the eye with courage and respect. This is what makes us samurai.
The game is playable with both English and Japanese voiceovers, and I can confirm that both are exceptional. I know many people enjoy hearing the Japanese voiceovers in anime and other Japanese media, but the English voiceovers in this game do not disappoint. The only thing I will say is that the newly added lip syncing for the Japanese voices is quite awkward and is nowhere near as good as the English lip syncing. That aside, the story is excellent as it depicts the cruelty of conflict and war while also being wholly respectful to the nation of Japan and the history that took place on Tsushima Island. Throughout the game, players acquire a myriad of abilities and fighting styles. Throughout the course of the main quest, players will also learn and adapt new fighting stances that target certain enemies' weaknesses. Players can also branch away from the samurai swordplay and slaughter their enemies stealthily by sneaking through tall reeds of grass and sneaking to their prey as you attack from the shadows. I love the whole implications of the stealth gameplay and how it is wrapped up in the narrative of being an honorable samurai and how it hurts the code of the samurai warrior. This is a major story thread that Jin constantly comes to terms with throughout the story, and it is done so maturely here. Players get access to bows and arrows, kunai, and other long-range weapons to wreak havoc from afar. Certain side quests also reward Jin with additional weapons and armor sets, and many of these quests greatly enhance the backstories of many of the supporting cast's strongest characters. You can also upgrade Jin's equipment by collecting various ingredients in the open world and returning them to a blacksmith who can forge upgrades. Players can navigate the terrain of Tsushima while on the back of a horse to expedite travel, and players can also fast travel to previously visited areas to reduce backtracking. This stuff is all very common in other open-world games, but what really sets this game apart from other open-world sandboxes are in the meaningful ways in which Ghost of Tsushima's side content constantly rewards the player with upgrades and enhancements. By following a question mark indicated on the map, players can uncover areas that can permanently upgrade Jin's stats, like his health bar by resting at hot springs and increasing melee damage by doing bamboo strikes, while other activities reward Jin with cosmetic headbands by writing haiku, or engaging with fox shrines to acquire various charms that can be equipped to enhance stats and other parameters. All of these locations can be traversed to when a player is near a special bird that provides assistance to the location, guiding the player to the location and emitting a beautiful shrieking sound. There are also mythic quests that take players on fantastic quests regarding Japanese mythology and folklore that injects the player with Japanese culture and rewards players with incredible armor sets and other upgrades. By partaking in these activities throughout the beautiful open world, the player is not only benefiting from the character upgrades, but also grows a knowledge and appreciation of various aspects of Japanese culture. These elements are very short diversions that are always worth the time and often lead to the game's most beautiful and scenic spots. To help take in the beauty of traversing Tsushima, there is no on-screen map during gameplay. Rather, all destinations can be tracked by the way of the wind. By swiping up on the DualSense touchpad, beautiful wind animations will play out, guiding the player in the right direction to the destination. Players may view the map of Tsushima by pausing the game in the map menu. Speaking of beauty, this is quite possibly the most beautiful open world game ever created. The dense forests and blades of grass dance with almost cartoon-like quality of the wind wisping through the sky. Petals of leaves realistically flutter in the sky as they brace for contact with the earth. The leaves realistically dance with Jin's feet as he strolls or dashes through the area, creating vibrant shockwaves of magnificent color splashing around him. The way the colors pop in this game is truly unbelievable, and it is the most eye-catching color palette that sells this art style. The blue sky is so deep and tranquil, contrasting to the vibrant greens of the trees and bamboo thickets on the earth. The snow glistens and twinkles as the wind carries off flurries in the sky like pixie dust. The foliage from the trees emits this fantastical-like appearance of walking through bucolic temples in Japan's most remote and untouched areas. This game just transports you into these areas that make you happy you took up virtual tourism for hours on end without touching the story or side quests. And the good news is, this is basically the whole game. Every part of the game is non-stop visual ecstasy. I have never stopped this much just to admire the scenery in a video game before, and the PS5 upgrades definitely enhance the quality of this already fantastic looking PS4 game. Better yet, this game outputs at a dynamic 4K resolution and is at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. As someone who completed the game when it came out on the PS4 last year in 2020, I decided I would play through the main game again on New Game Plus, taking with me all the character upgrades and resources I had gathered in my initial playthrough. Completing the game the second time around was significantly easier, and it helped me refamiliarize the controls for my upcoming quest to Iki Island, the PS5 Director's Cut's sizable expansion. I decided to tackle this expansion after completing the main game. I ended up getting the Platinum Trophy on the PS4 version by completing every quest and optional activity, which totaled to about 60 hours of gameplay. Playing through the Iki expansion and completing every mission and objective took roughly 15 hours of gameplay, which is a great amount for an expansion. The island isn't enormous, but it is sizable and jam-packed with stuff to do, new scenery, quests, and activities that make this Director's Cut version of Ghost of Tsushima a must-buy for fans of the game. In order to access Iki Island, players will notice a quest called Journey to the Past in the game's second territory on Tsushima Island. Jin Sakai encounters several islanders who are entranced and seemingly crazed by a certain medicine originating on Iki Island. Introduced here is the sole new enemy type added to the game, the Shaman. The Shaman is an enemy that doesn't have a lot of health, but more than makes up for it by strengthening nearby enemies with his chants and singing. These enemy buffs are dramatic, as they can highly evade your attacks and greatly increases enemies' damage output while minimizing yours. It is highly advantageous to seek these shamans out immediately, and take them out before picking off the other enemies. Once defeated, the player then discovers that this medicine is being administered on the island of Iki by a person known as the Eagle, and has created a cult of followers that have massacred many towns and settlements on Iki and threatened to take over the island of Tsushima. Jin Sakai, having already been to Iki Island in the past with his now deceased father, seeks to go to Iki to rid the evil of the Eagle and its cult, preventing its destruction from wreaking further havoc on Iki and Tsushima, while also coming to terms with Jin's past on Iki. As Jin arrives on Iki, his ship is torn to shreds as he reaches the island. Shipwrecked and alone without his horse, Jin sets off on a new adventure to find his horse with an appetite to rid the island of the Eagle. So when I first got to the island of Iki, I was so entranced by the new tropical aesthetic that I was in full exploration mode. Scavenging for supplies in the nearby cave, I was greeted with an impressive and expansive view of the beaches of Iki as I managed to claw my way out. I then found a monkey shrine along the rocky shores of Iki, and played a nice tune for the monkeys, eventually petting them. The DualSense controller mimics the feeling of petting these animals pretty well, and I was taken aback by how adorable the monkeys were. These musical activities strengthen charms that can be equipped, a nice new feature of Iki Island. I then proceeded to climb a massive rock jutting out of the grass to get a nice vantage point of my area and hopefully the rest of the island. Satisfied with my view, I then proceeded to jump off the nearby cliff, realizing halfway down in midair that I wasn't going to survive the perilous fall. Thus was the end of Jin Sakai, like a lead balloon thudding against the unforgiving earth. The poor fellow didn't even manage to meet the eagle. Thank goodness for respawning in video games! This also highlights the near absence of loading times on the PS5. Within a second or two, Jin Sakai sprouted back to life, placing him back atop the cliff I had just jumped off. I safely made my way down the rock spire, learning from my wise life experience that it's often better to take your time than to rush headfirst into danger, and set off to find my trusty horse. After slaughtering some more crazed islanders, I was able to recover my horse, who was so pissed off from the shipwrecking and the islanders that it violently plowed through enemies as if it were slicing through bowling pins. The horse can now be used to plow through enemies and is actually a very fun mechanic that I ended up using quite a bit. Early in the expansion, Jin gets captured by the Eagle and takes the medicine under her command, creating various hallucinations for Jin as he tries to hunt the Eagle down and end her evil reign. This is as far as I will go with setting up the game's expansion on Iki Island, as I believe this story expansion to be very insightful in revealing many sensitive moments of Jin's past as he comes to terms with the events of his father and ultimately the place in the world that Jin sees himself. Jin encounters some new allies along the way in his quest to rid the Eagle of her reign over the island. These allies bring him to a settlement hidden in a cove by rocky shores, hosting the largest settlement on the island. In this bustling seaside cove, Jin may take up dueling in a gladiator ring if he so chooses, netting him valuable resources to further upgrade his gear. Along the way, as you track down the Eagle and her crazed cult, the player will encounter various hallucinations that seemingly occur out of nowhere and at complete random. These hallucinations are quite frequent and jarring and provide some jump scare-like qualities, so for players rattled by sudden and frequent interruptions with loud noises, be aware of this as you progress through Iki. There are also numerous side quests that net valuable resources for Jin, including one quest line that features a memorable character from Tsushima, who is a delight here on Iki. Along with the side quests are a few mythic tales which are among the best in the entire game. Quests take you to some truly incredible areas and the rewards are fantastic. The island of Iki is beautiful and varied in its environments, ranging from its harsh and cruel rocky coastlines to its wonderful purple foliage of the southern canyons to the abandoned and overgrown villages in the central plains. Instead of fox shrines, Iki is populated with various animal shrines in which Jin plays his instrument to tame animals, enhancing charms that can be equipped. There are also archery challenges which are incredibly difficult. Along with these new additions come some hot springs, haiku spots, bamboo strikes, and more activities that were commonplace in Tsushima. Just like the main game, there are many outposts for Jin to clear out, further lifting the fog of the map, revealing various new points of interest. With the main quest, side quests, and all other optional objectives coupled together, it took me roughly 15 hours to 100% Iki Island. A considerable amount, considering many games are at full price for a fraction of the length of this expansion. Iki Island is a love letter to anyone who played Ghost of Tsushima before and enjoyed it, and the Director's Cut edition is entirely worth it to just experience this expansion. It may not be as grand and expansive as many were hoping it to be, but this is just about as good an expansion as we could have hoped for. Iki has just so much eye-popping visual ecstasy as Tsushima Island, and the activities on Iki are varied enough to compel players to complete the island 100% if they so choose. Now, before I wrap up this video, I would like to point out that I did encounter some very, very mild bugs in this game that were in no way game-breaking. I did notice that, for a PS5 game, clothing garments that change the appearance of Jin in the menus are shockingly slow to render, as the game can take upwards of several seconds to load in the garments. No, this isn't gonna end the world, but as a PS5 game, I wouldn't necessarily think that this would become an issue. I also found that there were some collision issues regarding Jin falling through certain geometry when climbing up structures. This is common in many games, and I tried to replicate this on the building that I managed to break, but didn't succeed. Perhaps the game just wanted to make me laugh. I mean, I guess who really knows, but have any of you encountered these sorts of glitches? Lastly, this is just criticism of the way certain cutscenes are done in the game and don't reflect in any way on the PS5 edition of the game. But it would have been nice to see the same level of care in many of the game's story cutscenes to be commonplace throughout. There are some jarring scenes in which some dialogue takes place and the camera pans out for extended periods of time while the characters are just engaging in conversation. Probably so that the animators didn't have to animate the characters interacting with one another. Yes, a minor complaint, but it still stands as these cutscenes are quite frequent and are somewhat common even during main quests. Also, in some scenes, the lip syncing is just lazily slapped together. The presentation of the game's cinematics are somewhat jarring, but this is by no means anything to mock the game for, just something that I hope will be addressed in future games by Sucker Punch. In general, Ghost of Tsushima is an incredible game that everyone who is interested in open world games should absolutely check out. The combat is enjoyable and challenging, and thanks to the new lock-on mechanic, fighting isn't as awkward as it was before. Exploration is always rewarding, both due to the game's rewards and also in just how beautiful and varied the environments are. And lastly, the story and its characters are expertly done, delivering a tale that can be enjoyed by both the average gamer, historian, or anybody else. With the aforementioned improvements made in the PS5 Director's Cut of Ghost of Tsushima, in addition to the sizable Iki Island expansion, this is an absolute must-buy for anyone who has both never played the game before and for those who enjoyed the game on the PS4. In addition to the base game, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut also comes with Ghost of Tsushima Legends, its multiplayer offering. Ghost of Tsushima Legends is a co-op mode in which 2 to 4 players fight off waves and waves of increasingly challenging enemies while choosing from one of 4 classes: Samurai, Hunter, Ronin, and Assassin. Legends players earn EXP and also get gear-based loot for leveling up. A few modes are included with the Legends co-op mode, including Survival mode, which is your traditional Horde mode-like mode, where 2 to 4 players team up and battle increasingly difficult waves of enemies. Also included is a Story mode built for up to 2 players, which is a 9-episode narrative that introduces some awesome new game mechanics. The final mode is a Challenge mode, which is a 3-chapter raid that requires 4 players and is incredibly difficult. Ghost of Tsushima Legends is honestly legendary. There are many reasons for this. One, this is a mode that nobody really asked for but turned out to be incredibly good. Sure, I'm sure there are players out there that would have loved to have played this game along with a friend or two while utilizing the awesome mechanics of Ghost of Tsushima with its excellent swordplay and stealth mechanics. But this is a free update that was handed out 3 months after the game originally released back in 2020 on the PS4. It is because of the intense love, care, and support by developers Sucker Punch that Legends mode has been embraced by all those who have played it, and is a very, very fun and solid diversion for those who have already completed Ghost of Tsushima and have already completed Iki Island expansion. Legends is absolutely worth your time and effort, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Let's hope that Sucker Punch makes a follow-up to this game, as feudal Japan is rich in excellent stories and history that can be as beautifully adapted into a game like Ghost of Tsushima. Hey everyone, Jack here from Fun My Life. If you enjoyed this video, please consider destroying that like button and subscribing to the channel. I make deep dive video game content about the biggest games releasing, and if you find any value from my channel, I would greatly appreciate your support.